The recent surge in federal immigration enforcement in the Chicago area, officially dubbed Operation Midway Blitz, has resulted in the arrests of over 800 individuals since its launch in early September. The operation, spearheaded by the Department of Homeland Security and involving various agencies, is characterized by unusually aggressive and high-visibility tactics, typically reserved for border areas or counterterrorism efforts. This escalation included the use of Black Hawk helicopters, masked federal agents, and midnight raids on residential buildings, most notably a South Shore apartment complex that led to 37 arrests. DHS officials justified the blitz by claiming it targets the worst of the worst, criminal illegal aliens, including members of transnational gangs like Tren de Aragua and individuals with histories of violent felonies, sexual assault, and drug trafficking. However, reporting indicates that while the operation has captured some individuals with criminal records, a significant number of arrests are considered collateral. Individuals encountered during the raids who lack legal status but have no serious criminal convictions. Furthermore, the aggressive nature of the raids has caused major public outcry, particularly after reports of U.S. citizens, including children, being briefly detained, fueling accusations that the operation's primary goal is political theater rather than targeted enforcement. 2. Analysis. Reasons and consequences. Reasons for the Blitz. The primary driver for Operation Midway Blitz appears to be a direct, political, and ideological confrontation with Illinois' sanctuary policies. Chicago and Illinois have been vocal critics of the administration's immigration stance and have implemented non-cooperation ordinances that limit local law enforcement's assistance to federal immigration agents. 3. Political signaling and retribution. The administration aims to pressure or punish sanctuary cities, using Chicago as a high-profile example to signal its hardline approach to immigration nationally. By conducting operations with military-style flair, it generates dramatic media coverage and caters to a base demanding strict enforcement and mass deportations. 4. Targeting specific groups. While the rhetoric focuses on the worst of the worst, the operation also explicitly targets new migrant populations, such as Venezuelans who arrived in Chicago via border busing programs, potentially aiming to disrupt and deter migration to blue states. 5. Softening deportation numbers. High-volume operations allow the administration to tout large arrest numbers, fulfilling campaign promises regardless of the severity of the detainee's charges or status. Consequences. The consequences of this operational strategy are far-reaching, affecting both civic order and human welfare. 1. Trauma and public fear. The use of militaristic tactics, helicopters, masked agents, forced nighttime entry in residential neighborhoods generates widespread fear and trauma, particularly among immigrant families. This chills trust between immigrant communities and local law enforcement, making individuals less likely to report crimes or cooperate with police. 2. Political and legal backlash. State and local leaders, including the governor and mayor, have strongly condemned the raids, escalating the political feud. This is likely to spur new legal challenges and further efforts to reinforce sanctuary protections, creating a volatile legal environment. 3. Due process concerns. The inclusion of collateral arrests and the temporary detention of U.S. citizens raise serious constitutional and civil liberties concerns. Critics argue that the sweeps are imprecise and violate due process rights, unnecessarily ensnaring non-targets. 4. Strain on resources. The mass arrests strain federal detention and deportation infrastructure, as well as local legal aid and advocacy organizations struggling to handle the sudden spike in cases. 5. Prediction. The conflict is highly likely to intensify in the near term. We can predict the following. 6. Sustained operations. Federal authorities will likely maintain the high operational tempo and visibility until a politically significant milestone is reached, or until legal injunctions force a change. The objective is to demonstrate that no city is a true safe haven. 7. Increased legal scrutiny. Advocacy groups in the city of Chicago are expected to file lawsuits challenging the legality and tactics of the raids, potentially seeking court orders to restrict the scope and nature of federal activity within the city's jurisdiction. 8. Local resistance and non-cooperation. Chicago authorities will likely pass stricter non-cooperation ordinances, and community groups will rapidly mobilize Know Your Rights campaigns and establish surveillance and reporting hotlines to monitor and respond to federal activity. This will turn the city into a battleground for immigration policy enforcement. 9. Solutions and recommendations. Addressing this crisis requires a multi-pronged approach combining policy changes, legal action, and grassroots mobilization. 10. Policy and intergovernmental solutions. Establish clear protocols. Federal and local governments must establish formal, legally binding protocols that define the scope and conduct of immigration operations in sanctuary jurisdictions. This should mandate that federal agencies notify local police before operations and restrict the use of excessive high-impact tactics in densely populated residential areas. Focus on judicial warrants. Enforcement should strictly adhere to targeted arrests based on judicial warrants, eliminating the use of collateral arrests, which sweep up non-criminal individuals and are responsible for the majority of civil rights concerns. Federal funding transparency. Congress or a court order could require DHS to publish transparent, detailed data on all arrests, including criminal history, charges, and whether the individual was a primary target or a collateral arrest, to allow for public and judicial oversight. 11. Community and legal defense. Expand legal defense funds. Local nonprofits should receive increased funding to provide rapid response legal defense, counsel for individuals detained, and aid for separated families. Community watch programs. Grassroots organizations should expand their efforts to monitor raids, document abuses, and disseminate Know Your Rights information, particularly in languages spoken by the affected communities. Civil rights litigation. Attorneys must pursue civil rights lawsuits against the federal agencies involved, challenging the constitutionality of the tactics used, such as helicopter raids and detention of minors or citizens, to set legal precedents that restrict future militaristic enforcement actions. By combining legal pressure with political advocacy and community empowerment, the impact of such high-intensity immigration enforcement can be mitigated and the fundamental rights of all residents protected.